Welcome back to the Snow Family Racing Garage. I've got Shop Dog Harvey with me here today because he's just a good boy. Today we are talking about 5 things to consider when choosing your next or even your first project car. Stay tuned, let's talk. So the first thing to consider is, what do you like? What car catches your eye? I mean, here in the Snow Family Racing Garage, you're going to see, a variety of vehicles. I'm a GM guy. There's other people that like the Fords, the Mopars, even some of the classic imports. Hey, whatever tickles your fancy, that's what matters. But do you like the classic American Luxo barges like the 1965 Riviera? Do you like a little bit more modern, like the G-bodies, the 78 through 87 GM Intermediates? My personal weapon of choice, but that's just me. I happen to really like them. Let me show you some of the other things that we have kicking around, and maybe it'll spur some thoughts in your mind. Maybe it's the 64 through 72 GM A-body that catches your eye. This happens to be a 1964 Buick Special, and we'll get into something about the off-brands here in a little bit. Maybe you're looking for a project that can do work. The square body Chevy is a good example of that. This happens to be an 84 C30 1-ton long bed crew cab dually. It does have the big block in it, so they're easy to fit lots of engine and get big power out of these, and they can still do work. More G-bodies, if you can imagine that. I happen to really like El Caminos. The black one is actually a GMC Caballero Diablo, which is incredibly rare. Used to be my dad's daily driver. We got to do a frame off on that car. This 85 El Camino was just too good of a deal to pass up. The body is really clean, and it has a shell, which is one of those interesting things. Maybe you like something a little bit older. This is a 1949 Dodge Meadowbrook. You like the fat fenders? This is kind of cool. This was an interesting acquisition for us. Big 4-door. It's pretty rough. There's a lot of rust holes and stuff, but the car is complete, which is important to keep in mind. So this is a long-term project that I'll be getting to sometime. I know, hard to believe. Another G-body El Camino. G-bodies come in a lot of different flavors. This is a Cutlass. This is my 85 Regal. This one's going to be turned into an interesting project. Probably going to call it the Road Racing Regal or something, because I have actually taken this out on the road course. We'll show some videos of that too. But this one has the boring 3.8 V6. They came with 6s, they came with 8s, but they're really easy to stuff big power into. They handle well. They already have disc brakes. There's a lot of things going for G-bodies. There's always Harvey finding gopher holes. An interesting option that I have actually seen some pretty cool ones. This is a Monte Carlo SS. This has got the front drive with the 3800 V6. Some of these cars, especially the Pontiacs, could be had with the supercharger on the 3800 V6. They're quick. They're pretty good handling cars. They're fun to play with. So even modern muscle can be fun. The second thing to consider is, what are your plans for the car? Do you want a fun car to drive on the street that handles pretty well? Do you want a drag car like the 64 Buick over here, my El Camino? And there's actually a story behind my El Camino. We'll get to that. Do you just want a comfy street cruiser like the Monte Carlo over there? That thing goes down the road absolutely beautifully, not overpowered, very pleasant to drive. It's actually pretty cool to drive. I like it. Being clear on the things that you want to have in a car is really going to make a difference, because if you change directions, it's going to cost more money. You go down the handling road, you start getting handling parts, and you find out you really enjoy drag racing. Some of those parts don't cross over, but some of them do. So there's this fine line of getting the right parts and not spending too much doing it. Another thing to consider, number 3 actually, is what's your budget? Because that's going to depend on the car that you go after. Do you have the money to buy something that's a little bit more closer to complete, that's running, that's driving, that has some of the things that you're already looking for? Or is your budget pretty small and you have to start with something a little bit more humble? Do you need to look at off-brands like the 64 Buick Special over here? Because the Buicks, the Oldsmobiles, some of the Pontiacs, the GTOs are really expensive, but the Le Mans and a couple of the other A-bodies, they're actually a bit more affordable than, say, the Chevelles of the same year. Do you want something that's already, one of the already desirable models like the SS or even the Shelbys if you're a Ford guy? These are all things to consider because they'll impact how much money you're going to spend getting the car, how close you're going to want to stay to its original form. Some people care about originality. I'm not the biggest originality nut, but there are times where an original car brings a lot more money if you ever go to sell it. Keep that in mind, guys. The fourth thing that I tell guys that are just starting out to keep in mind, what's your skill level? If you're staring at an empty engine bay Is this something that you want to tackle, have the skills to tackle, have the resources to tackle? I mean, everybody can learn, don't get me wrong, and I want everyone out there to learn as much as they want. But being honest with yourself and saying, you know, this is a little bit more than I want to tackle, I can tackle, have the space to tackle, and by all means, be ambitious. Take on those projects where you learn a lot. But if you're looking at an empty engine bay and you think, you know, this really isn't enjoyable, this isn't what I want to do, that's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is rust repair. There are some people out there that do not like auto body at all. You know, I'm a welder and fabricator machinist by trade. I don't mind doing that stuff, but the, you know, block sanding, you know, that stuff gets to me. But I can do rust repair, structural stuff. That's where I really enjoy doing stuff. Engine building, making cars fast, I love it. You know, but guys, be honest with your skill set so that way you get the car that's going to work out best for you and you don't get discouraged. So that way you're always moving forward and you're able to keep the right mindset. Mindset is way more important than most people give it credit for. So let's move on. The fifth thing that I recommend you keep track of is what's your timeline? Is it coming up on summer cruising season and you got the itch, you want something to go drive around and enjoy the summer months? Or is this something that you're more willing to have a long-term project with, that you're okay building an engine, that you're okay doing, you know, as big as a frame-off restoration? You know, if your timeline is short, you may be looking at something that's a lot more complete, that you can get out there and enjoy and tinker with and do the little stuff. You know, the big projects have a place just as much as the small projects. And I know people that have both. You know, a summertime project that they're able to go play with and tinker with, and the big heavy stuff that they're able to do over the winter that they can really get into. Tear the car apart, really make it into something spectacular. So guys, keep in mind your timeline. And also, if you have a shop dog down here that keeps your hands warm in the wintertime, that's nice too. So those are my 5 recommendations for things to keep track of when you're looking for a new project car. And Harvey wants to go for a ride, apparently. I got to get the Riviera out of the garage to go do some basic carb tuning. That's a story for another day, guys. But keep in mind, there are options out there. Don't get discouraged. And I promise you can have fun finding the car that you want, restoring it, building it the way you want. You want something original? That can be done. You want something totally hot-rodded and, you know, unique? You can do that too. And don't be afraid to learn and dig into new things. That's kind of what this is all about, is learning, growing, and being able to do new things. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you later. Harvey, what do you think? You're on camera. Do you see that? Yeah.